The Emperor's Children value perfection above all else, and it's this pursuit of perfection that eventually led to their downfall. Rejecting the Emperor's designs and opting for more unorthodox augmentations, sliding from being an army of Fabio lookalikes to an army of Frankenstein's monsters. But there's plenty of time for you to read all the lore, now's the time for painting. And because I want a nice rich purple on this model, I'm going to start with a black primer, and as usual my trusty Vallejo surface primer. But if we left this all black we wouldn't see much of the purple, so I'm going to give it a zenithal highlight with Liquitex white ink. And if you haven't experienced the pleasures of using inks through an airbrush, I suggest you try it. It's such a joy to work with and really opens up some opportunities for some cool experiments. I'm going to go pretty heavy with this because when it dries it does start to go a little bit more transparent, and also I want some really stark highlights on this model. And as you can see here, you get some really nice steps and transitions between the black and the white. And speaking of airbrush experiments, I've recently discovered that Citadel contrast paints are a joy to work with through an airbrush. This colour is Magos Purple, and this is the lighter of the two purples that we're going to be using. And when working with these contrast paints, the angle of spray is important. So for this first step we're going to be doing mostly from the top, and this is going to be the highlight. Where traditionally we do the darker colours first and work our way up, this is going to be slightly different. And if you've worked with purple acrylics before, you'll know the pigments can be quite fickle and hard to work with, but these contrast paints really eliminate all of those problems. Next up is Shaiish Purple, which is the darker of the two purples we're going to use. And again, the angle is important in this stage, so we're going to be spraying from mostly the bottom of the model. And this is going to give us our nice deep shadows in all the little crevices in the armour. And this is going to give us a really nice contrast between the two purples. And that's pretty much it for the purple armour, as easy as that. I think I'm in love with these contrast paints, they make things so much easier. For all the trims we're going to use Retributor Armour on the shoulder pads, the faceplate and around the knees. And for all the other metallics I'm going to use my trusty Vallejo gunmetal, and this is going to go on the backpack, the bolt gun and the chainsaw. For the shoulder pad I decided to do a marble effect, and there's a really simple way you can do that. First off, I'm going to base it in Celestra Grey to give us a nice light grey base. And then you start painting all the veins using a slightly darker grey than your base and working your way up to a really dark grey. And each time you change colours, make sure the line gets thinner and thinner. And you'll end up with something that resembles marble. Pure luxury. Now because I don't have any Emperor's Children transfers, I'm going to have to freehand this logo. And it's a pretty straightforward one. I basically start with Rhinox hide and trace the general shape, which is a wing and a talon clutching a little ball. And then I come in with Retributor Armour and pick out the feathers and little details in the talon. You don't have to be super precise with this because it's super tiny on the shoulder, you're not really going to tell. As long as you've got the general shape, people will know what it is. And we're going to do the Legion marker on the other shoulder, and this is of course a 3, and to do this easily start with the middle vertical line and that'll give you your center point. And then just cross them off on the top and bottom. The last little detail we do before we wash and highlight is to do the eyes, and to do this easily I just do a small little dab of white in the center of the eye followed by a red wash, and the white dot in the middle is going to give you a nice easy two-step gloss look. For the wash I use Agrax Earthshade and coat all the gold and silver areas, and then a real quick edge highlight with Liberator Gold for the gold and Dura-Aluminium for the silver parts. So I could base this model, I very carefully cut it off its base and definitely didn't cut myself. I coated it in Astro Granite Debris, which is a texture paint from Citadel. Then I sporadically used a bit of Mordant Earth, which is the black crackle paint from Citadel. And this is going to give us a nice bit of variation on the base so it doesn't look as boring. And this base is supposed to resemble Chemos, which is a former mining world of the Imperium and the original homeworld of the 3rd Legion. And then we're going to do some dry brushing, and I'm using these new Army Painter Masterclass dry brushes, and I seriously recommend these if you're going to do a lot of dry brushing. They're just a lot nicer and easier to use than their flat-headed counterparts, and they're a lot cheaper than the Artis Opus dry brushes, which to be fair are really good. And using the Celestra Grey again, I'm going to lightly dry brush this base, which is oh so very satisfying with these round-headed dry brushes. Now just finish it off with a little bit of dead grass and we're done. And with the new edition of Horus Heresy coming out very soon, I'm going to use this method to paint my Emperor's Children army. And I wanted this to be nice, quick and simple because there's going to be a lot of Marines to paint. And I haven't decided who's going to be the second half of that Horus Heresy box yet, but stay tuned to this channel. I'm going to be going through each of the Horus Heresy legions.